The first scream tore through the forest like shattered glass, a sound so raw and desperate that Harper Vale's blood froze in her veins before her body could react. She tightened her grip on the reins of her horse, a sturdy chestnut Mari named Bramble, as it stumbled through snowdrifts that reached nearly to its belly. Harper's eyes, dark and sharp, scanned the frozen expanse. Her breath puffed in clouds, mingling with the icy wind that whipped across the pine-laden slope. At 30, Harper was no stranger to danger. She'd survived blizzards, bandits, and broken trails. But something about this scream-piercing human, terrified, made her gut twist with foreboding. The snow crunched under her boots as she dismounted, tightening her woolen scarf around her neck. She felt the cold bite through her leather gloves, numbing her fingers as she scanned the trees, listening for another cry. And then she saw it, a figure suspended from a twisted branch of a dead pine, swinging violently in the wind. Its coat, once a deep forest green, was shredded and frozen stiff against the woman's trembling body. Her hair, dark and tangled, whipped across her pale face. The rope digging into her wrists and throat had chafed her skin raw, leaving a mark that made Harper's stomach churned out without hesitation. Harper sprinted toward the tree, feeling the snow give way under her boots, her lungs burning from exertion and cold. "Hold on," she shouted, though the wind carried her voice only a few feet. Drawing her hunting knife, she cut the rope with a swift slash, and the woman collapsed into the snow with a muffled gasp. Harper's arms were under her in an instant, steadying her as she coughed and shivered violently. "To thank you," the woman rasped, her teeth chattering. They said I was a thief, but I didn't." Her voice faltered. Harper tightened her hold. "Who did this?" Harper demanded, scanning the tree line. Shadows flitted between the snow-draped trunks, silent and deliberate. Harper's senses screamed that they were being watched. "They're still here," she muttered, more to herself than to the woman. The woman, finally able to speak more clearly, managed. "The merchants. And they're men. They said I stole a locket from the governor's traveling convoy. I swear I didn't touch it. I don't even know how they found me." Harper nodded slowly, her sharp gaze never leaving the tree line. "It doesn't matter what you know," she said. "It only matters that they want you dead. And if they've started this, it won't end easily." She helped the woman to her feet and guided her toward Bramble. The ride through the forest was treacherous. Snow drifted into deep pockets, swallowing their horses' legs, and the wind cut through Harper's coat like a knife. Each breath burned, each step a battle against frostbite. Yet Harper's thoughts remained on the woman, who had introduced herself simply as Maris. Harper didn't know her story fully yet, but there was a defiance in her eyes, a spark that refused to break under Terrordot as the afternoon sun began to dip. The forest seemed to close in around them. Harper noticed tracks in the snow larger than human, deliberate, circling their path as though whoever had followed them had planned an ambush. Her hand instinctively went to the rifle slung across her back. "Someone's tracking us," she said quietly. Maris's eyes widened, fear returning. Hours later, Harper guided them to an abandoned lumber mill on the forest's edge, a relic of her father's old trading routes. The place smelled of rot and sawdust, but the wooden walls offered shelter from the gale outside. She pushed open the creaking door, revealing a cavernous interior where dust motes danced in the dim light filtering through broken windows. Harper quickly struck flint, lighting a lantern. The glow revealed shadows that seemed to move with the flicker of light. Maris sank to the floor near the hearth Harper hastily built, shaking from cold and shock. I don't understand why this is happening," she murmured. "I've lived quietly. I've kept to myself." Harper knelt beside her, brushing snow from her coat. "People will believe what they want to believe. Greed and fear make liars out of even the quietest towns. But we'll survive this night. Harper's thoughts were interrupted by a sound soft, deliberate steps on the wooden floor outside. She tensed, rifle raised, but Maris flinched even more violently. Then a man stepped into the doorway, the snow falling from his long black hair, glinting with beads and silver ornaments. His coat, dark and sweeping, brushed the floor. He wore moccasins dusted with frost, and tribal jewelry jingled faintly with his movement. His presence was magnetic, his gaze steady and commanding. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low but firm. Harper studied him, wary yet intrigued. His eyes were sharp, aware of every detail around him. Who are you?" Maris asked. "Call me Tayanita," he replied. "I've been tracking the men who tried to hang you. They're part of a gang that terrorizes these forests, and they will not stop until you're dead." Harper's hand tightened around her rifle, but she didn't lower it. "Then we fight," she said simply. Survival was all she had ever known, and she refused to stand down. Tayanita's eyes flicked toward the shadows outside the mill. "They are close. Not just ordinary men. There are others. Darker things at work. You must be ready for more than bullets." That night, Harper, Maris, and Tayanita kept a wary vigil. The snowstorm intensified, blanketing the forest in white silence. Every snap of a branch, every gust of wind, made Harper's pulse jump. Outside, the tracks she had noticed earlier appeared again, circling the mill as if mocking them. Tayanita moved with uncanny silence, checking the perimeter. Harper noticed how the forest seemed to respond to him. The wind shifted. The snow settled differently, as if the wilderness itself obeyed his presence. Maris sat near the fire, wrapped in a blanket Harper had thrown over her shoulders. She trembled, whispering, "I never asked for this, for anyone to care about me." Harper shook her head. "You survived because you refused to bow to fear. That's why anyone will care." Suddenly, a howl rose from the forest, a low, guttural sound that wasn't quite animal. Harper's pulse jumped. Tayanita stiffened. "They are near," he whispered. "Not the ones you fear the most, but their allies. The forest itself is restless. It knows what is coming." Harper felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Her instincts screamed danger, not the kind that could be warded off with rifles or knives. The night stretched endlessly, filled with the sound of snow grinding against roof beams, the occasional snap of branches, and the distant, haunting howl. Maris finally drifted into a fitful sleep by the fire, exhausted from fear, exposure, and shock. Harper kept watch, rifle ready, scanning the darkened forest. Hours passed, the wind carrying whispers through the broken windows. Harper's mind raced with questions. Who had hanged Maris? Why? And how far were these men willing to go? And more pressing, what was Tayanita hiding? The forest seemed to hum with secrets, and Harper knew survival would demand every ounce of skill, cunning, and courage she possessed. By dawn, the snow had intensified into a near whiteout. The trio was forced to make a decision: stay hidden and risk being trapped, or move through the storm and risk being discovered. Harper's eyes swept the tree line, calculating the safest path through the frozen wilderness. Bramble pawed at the snow impatiently, sensing the tension. Harper mounted, helping Maris onto a second horse Tayanita had brought. Before they left, Tayanita touched a pendant at his chest, murmuring a word in his native tongue. Harper felt the hairs on her arms rise as the snow seemed to part slightly, clearing their path. "We leave now," he said. "But know this, the hunt has only begun, and they will not stop until they have what they seek or until you are gone." Harper exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding and urged Bramble forward. The forest swallowed them, a swirl of white and shadow. The scream from the previous night still echoed in her ears, but now it was joined by the sound of determination, hers, Maris's, and the mysterious Tayanita's. The frozen forest had claimed many victims, but tonight it had given them a chance, and Harper vowed she would not waste it. The snowstorm had not relented by morning. The forest was buried in white, the trees heavy with frost, and every gust of wind carried with it the icy bite of winter. Harper urged Bramble forward cautiously, scanning the forest for tracks or movement. Maris clung to the horse's saddle, shivering beneath layers of blankets Harper had wrapped around her, her teeth chattering despite the thick wool and furs. Tayanita walked alongside, his long coat brushing the snow, his eyes alert and unblinking, the tribal beads around his neck clinking softly as he moved. Harper had never seen anyone navigate the forest with such fluidity. He seemed to merge with it, an extension of the snow and shadows themselves. They had traveled for hours through treacherous paths, but Harper's instincts told her that staying on the open trails would be suicide. The men hunting Maris were experienced, and they would expect her to flee along the obvious routes. Instead, Harper led them into a narrow ravine between two ice-coated cliffs, where the wind whistled in eerie tones, almost like whispers warning them to turn back. The horses struggled, their hooves slipping on hidden ice patches, but Harper's skill guided them safely through. Tayanita paused, kneeling in the snow and tracing something with his fingers. "They follow the wrong path," he said quietly. "The forest hides you better than you think, but there is more than men seeking you. Greed has taken root, and it draws them closer." Maris looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. "Greed? You mean they want the locket?" Tayanita shook his head. "The locket is a lure. What they truly seek is the knowledge it holds. They do not care for you personally, only what you know and what you might reveal if they catch you." Harper's jaw tightened. She had suspected the same, but hearing it confirmed made the tension in her chest tighten like a vice. "Then we have to make sure she's not caught, no matter what." As the afternoon dragged on, the forest's shadows deepened. Harper led them to a hidden valley she had known from her father's trading days, a place where the snow melted slightly around geothermal fissures that vented warm steam. The valley was a natural fortress, surrounded by sheer cliffs and dense trees. Its isolation made it a perfect refuge, though Harper could feel the unnatural chill in the air. As if the valley itself watched and judged anyone who entered, they dismounted near a steaming pool, the mist curling upward in twisting shapes. Maris sank to her knees near the water's edge, letting the warmth seep into her frozen limbs. Harper and Tayanita watched the surroundings, alert to the smallest movement. The air felt alive, heavy with tension. Harper knew the gang would not give up easily. These men were desperate and ruthless. Maris finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "I don't understand why anyone would want me dead. I've never done anything. Anything to hurt anyone?" Harper knelt beside her, brushing the wet snow from her hair. "It's not about what you've done. Out here, people make rules for themselves, and justice is often a lie. They believe you have something that belongs to them. That's enough." Tayanita crouched nearby, his fingers tracing marks in the snow. "They are close. They watch, wait, and they do not act alone. The forest itself is restless, and there are forces beyond their understanding. You must be ready for anything." Harper nodded, feeling a chill beyond the cold seeping into her bones. "Then we prepare. We can't rely on luck." Night fell quickly in the valley, the storm growing stronger, blanketing the land in near-complete whiteout. Harper built a makeshift barricade of fallen timber and rocks around their small campsite. The horses were hobbled near the geothermal steam, which kept them from freezing, and Maris huddled under blankets. Still trembling despite the fire they managed to start, hours passed, and Harper's eyes never left the tree line. Each snap of a branch, each hollow gust of wind, made her grip the rifle tighter. She had survived blizzards, storms, and bandits, but there was something different tonight, a sense of being hunted that went beyond human malice. Then came the low howl, echoing across the valley, a sound that was not entirely animal. Harper froze. Maris clutched her knees, fear etched across her face. "They are near," Tayanita whispered. "Not the ones you fear most, but their allies. The forest speaks warnings. Listen." The howl repeated, closer this time, and Harper realized with a sinking feeling that the forest itself seemed alive with intent. Wolves or creatures shaped like wolves slid between the trees, eyes glowing in the darkness, their breaths visible in the icy air. Harper raised her rifle, but Tayanita's hand on her shoulder stopped her. "They will not attack," he said calmly, almost reverently. "They recognize me, but they warn you. Those who pursue you will come prepared. You must anticipate everything." The wolves circled, then melted back into the mist. Harper's pulse remained high, her mind racing with possibilities. These were not ordinary predators. Harper had spent her life in the wild, tracking animals and men alike, but this was different. Something ancient lingered in the valley, something protective but indifferent, a force that seemed to respond to Tayanita's presence. Maris finally broke the tense silence. "I never wanted this," she whispered, voice trembling. "I wanted only to live quietly, to honor my husband's memory, and now—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Harper placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You survived because you refused to bow to fear. That is why you are alive. And why we are here," Harper said firmly. "Whatever comes next, you will not face it alone." Hours later, a figure emerged from the snowy mist. Harper tensed immediately, raising her rifle. The shape took form, a man on horseback, face hidden by a scarf, rifle ready. Harper's heart leapt. The gang had found them. Tayanita moved silently, positioning himself between Maris and the approaching threat. The snow swirled around them, obscuring vision, turning the forest into a shifting maze of white. The man on horseback stopped at the edge of the geothermal steam, scanning the valley. Harper's finger hovered over the trigger. Tayanita whispered something in his native tongue, and the air shifted. The man hesitated, sensing something he could not understand. Then, almost reluctantly, he turned his horse and vanished back into the blizzard. Harper exhaled slowly, her pulse still racing. "They'll be back," she said. "And next time, they won't be alone." Tayanita's gaze swept over the valley. "They are greedy. They will take what does not belong to them, and they will not hesitate to kill. But you have allies in this forest. The valley is alive and it watches. Use that knowledge. It will keep you alive longer than bullets alone." Maris looked between them, her fear mingling with something else, determination. "Then we keep moving. We hide, we survive, and we fight if we must. I won't let them take me. Not now, not ever." Harper nodded, seeing the steel in her eyes, the same defiance that had allowed her to survive being hanged in the first place. The night stretched on. The snow fell heavier, coating the valley in deep silence broken only by the hiss of the geothermal steam and the distant cries of unseen animals. Harper kept watch, rifle in hand, while Tayanita remained near the tree line, his silhouette blending with the shadows, alert to every movement. Maris finally dozed off by the fire, exhaustion overtaking fear. Harper's mind wandered to the locket, to the men who pursued her, and to the strange, protective forces that lingered in the valley. By dawn, the storm showed no sign of abating, but Harper made a decision. They could not remain idle. They had to move. She packed their minimal supplies, ensuring the horses were ready, and helped Maris to her feet. Tayanita's eyes scanned the horizon, then rested on Harper. We go now. The snow will conceal us, but it will also test us. Every step must be deliberate. Harper nodded, tightening her grip on the reins. The three of them moved through the valley, the geothermal steam leaving trails of mist that mingled with the falling snow. Harper felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. For the first time in hours, the snow seemed less like a prison and more like a shield. They were not safe, not by far, but they were alive. And in the frozen wilderness, survival was everything. The snowstorm had eased slightly, leaving the forest coated in a thick, brittle blanket of white. Every step crunched underfoot as Harper guided Bramble and Maris's horse along the icy ridge, her eyes scanning the tree line for signs of the gang. Tayanita moved ahead, his long black hair brushing the snow, the tribal beads around his neck glinting faintly in the pale light. His eyes were sharp, scanning every shadow, every movement, as if the forest itself whispered secrets only he could hear. Harper had long since learned that he never spoke unless he had to. His silence carried as much weight as his words. They had followed tracks that led to a hidden cavern, carved into the cliffside, smoke curling from torches that flickered against the icy walls. Harper stopped at the edge of a rocky outcrop, binoculars pressed to her eyes. Inside, men rifled through supplies and equipment. At the center stood a man wearing a mask fashioned from wolf bones, the leader of the gang. He was hulking and cruel, radiating a menace that made Harper's stomach twist. Around him, the others moved with brutal efficiency, searching for something they believed Maris possessed. "They are prepared," Harper whispered, lowering the binoculars. "And they will not hesitate to kill if they see us." Tayanita nodded, crouching beside her. "No, we must be cunning. This is not a fight to be won with force alone. Shadows and patience will serve better." Harper's eyes narrowed. "Then what do you propose?" He traced the outline of the cavern with his eyes. "We infiltrate. We move like the storm, unseen and precise. We take them by surprise. Their greed will blind them." As darkness fell, Harper, Maris, and Tayanita approached the cavern, careful to stay downwind and in the shadow of the cliffs. The snow beneath their boots was deceptively soft, muffling their movements, but each step required careful balance. Harper's pulse hammered in her chest, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Maris rode beside her, clutching the small satchel containing her late husband's maps and notes, the only evidence proving her innocence. Harper could see the fear in Maris's eyes, but it was tempered with determination, the same fire that had refused to let her die by the tree. They reached the cavern's entrance, hidden behind a frozen waterfall. Tayanita crouched, examining the way the ice shifted and glimmered. "This is our passage," he whispered. "It is narrow, but it will conceal us. Move quickly, silently." Inside, the air was thick with a scent of smoke and fear. The gang had begun to grow restless, their greed turning into impatience. Harper slipped forward, rifle at the ready, while Tayanita moved with feline grace, his moccasins making no sound on the icy stone. Maris followed, her hands gripping the satchel as tightly as her resolve. Harper's eyes adjusted to the dim light, and she saw the man who had hung Maris from the tree. He was laughing, cruel and hollow, as he inspected a set of tools for punishment. Harper's anger flared, a fire hotter than the geothermal vents outside. She could feel it building in her chest, threatening to consume her careful planning. She pressed her rifle closer, waiting for the right moment. Tayanita signaled with a small hand gesture, and Harper moved. A shot rang out, echoing against the cavern walls, striking one of the men who had rifled through supplies. Chaos erupted instantly. Harper ducked behind a frozen stalactite as the others scrambled, not expecting resistance. Tayanita's arrows flew with supernatural precision, disarming and incapacitating men in silence. Maris, though trembling, flung her satchel onto a table in the center of the cavern, scattering papers and maps. The gang froze, realizing that the woman they had pursued so relentlessly was not only innocent but had evidence that could destroy them. The masked leader roared in fury, charging toward Harper. She pressed the rifle against his chest, but Tayanita stepped between them, moving faster than she could follow. In a blur of motion, he disarmed the leader, twisting the rifle from his hands with a strength and precision that left Harper momentarily breathless. The man stumbled back, eyes wide with disbelief. "You are finished," Harper said coldly, her voice echoing in the cavern. "Leave and never return." The gang hesitated, confusion and fear flashing across their faces. The truth had shattered their illusion. They were not dealing with a simple woman, but a force of cunning, skill, and allies they could not comprehend. Slowly, they retreated, disappearing into the snow and mist, leaving the cavern silent except for the crackle of the small fire and the hiss of melting ice. Harper lowered her rifle, exhaling deeply. Maris sank to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks, mixing with the snow that had blown inside the cavern. I can't believe it," she whispered. They were going to kill me." Harper shook her head, kneeling beside her. "They thought fear would control you. It didn't, and that's why you're alive." Tayanita surveyed the room, his eyes sharp and calculating. "This is only a temporary victory," he said. "The locket, the maps, the evidence, they will draw others. Greed does not die with these men. It only waits for an opportunity. You must understand that your survival now depends on foresight as much as courage." Maris looked at him, a mixture of fear and relief in her eyes. "I've spent months running. I thought it would never end." Harper placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It doesn't have to. Not if we stay one step ahead. You survived before, and you will survive again. We make sure of it." The night outside remained bitter and unrelenting. The storm had settled into a heavy snowfall, the forest wrapped in white silence, but Harper could feel the weight of the threat pressing on them like ice on her chest. She and Tayanita gathered what supplies they could from the cavern provisions left behind. Tools, firewood, while Maris clutched her satchel, refusing to part with it. Every item was precious, every moment critical. As they prepared to leave, Harper's sharp eyes caught movement near the cavern entrance. Shadows shifted in the snow, and instinct told her it was not the wind. She raised her rifle, Tayanita moving beside her. Through the mist, a figure emerged, not human. Harper's stomach sank. The forest outside the cavern was alive, and forces beyond the gang's cruelty were stirring, drawn by the turmoil, by greed, by fear. Tayanita's voice was calm, almost reverent. "They are guardians. They are not your enemies, but they will test you. The forest speaks through them. Watch and do not provoke." The shape circled, large and powerful, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Harper's pulse raced. She had faced men with rifles, wolves in the wild, and blizzards that could bury a person alive, but these creatures carried an intelligence that was unsettling, ancient, unyielding. They paused, regarding Harper, Maris, and Tayanita, then vanished back into the mist as quietly as they had appeared. Harper exhaled slowly, her hands trembling slightly. "Every step we take is a risk," she said, her voice low. Maris nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we make those steps count. We fight, we survive, and we uncover the truth." Tayanita looked at them both, his expression unreadable. "The truth is dangerous. It will test your courage, your skill, and your loyalty. But it will also protect you if you honor it. Remember that." They left the cavern just before dawn, the snow falling lightly now, coating the valley in a fragile, deceptive calm. Harper led the way, Bramble's hooves steady, her senses alert to every sound, every shadow. Maris followed, clutching her satchel, and Tayanita moved silently beside them. His eyes never wavering from the tree-lined dot as they walked. Harper reflected on how far they had come. Maris had survived being hanged, the gang's pursuit, and the frozen wilderness. She had discovered allies in Tayanita and perhaps in the forest itself. Harper felt a surge of determination. The locket's secret was more than just gold or evidence. It was a key to survival, to justice, and to exposing the corruption that had driven Maris to the brink of death. They paused briefly at the edge of a frozen stream, the water moving beneath the ice in slow, relentless currents. Harper knelt, taking a sip of water, feeling the cold bite her hands. "We can't stop," she said quietly. "The gang may retreat, but they will regroup. And the locket, whoever seeks it will not give up easily." Maris knelt beside her, shivering, but her eyes were steady. "Then we don't give them a chance. We stay ahead. We survive. And when the time comes, we strike back." Harper nodded, feeling the fire of her own resolve reflected in the younger woman's gaze. Tayanita's eyes scanned the horizon, where the snow met jagged cliffs. "Tomorrow, we move closer to their main encampment. It is dangerous, but it is necessary. Only there will you uncover the full truth of the locket and the men who seek it. Be ready." Harper exhaled, watching the snow fall gently over the forest. She had survived countless threats, but something about the coming days made her pulse quicken. The hunt was far from over, and yet, for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope that they could not only survive but prevail. The valley behind them remained silent, the steam from the geothermal fissures curling into the snowy air, like the breath of something ancient watching over them. Harper, Maris, and Tayanita pressed on, unaware of what dangers and revelations awaited them in the frozen wilderness ahead. The snow had begun to melt, leaving the forest brittle and raw, branches dripping with water and ice glinting like shattered glass under the pale morning sun. Harper, Maris, and Tayanita moved cautiously along the ridge, the valley behind them a memory of frost and danger. The gang had scattered after the confrontation in the cavern, but Harper knew better than to believe the threat was gone. Greed and vengeance were not easily quelled, and the knowledge Maris carried made her a target more dangerous than before. Harper urged Bramble forward, the horse slipping slightly on icy patches, while Maris followed on her own mount, the satchel of maps and notes secured tightly to her chest. Tayanita moved beside them, his eyes scanning the tree line, alert to every movement. Despite the thawing snow, the forest remained treacherous, each step a calculated risk. Harper could feel it in her gut. The hunt was not yet over, and they had only moments to prepare for the final confrontation. They reached the old lumber mill Harper had once used as a hideout. The structure, battered by snow and wind, now stood as a temporary refuge. Inside, Harper piled wood for a fire while Tayanita surveyed the perimeter, his movements silent, precise. Maris unwrapped her hands from the satchel, trembling slightly as she set it on the table. "Do you think it's over?" she asked quietly. Harper shook her head. "Not yet. The locket, the maps. Whoever wants them will come again. We have to be ready." Tayanita nodded. "The evidence she carries is dangerous, not just to the gang, but to everyone who sought to profit from it. We must move carefully. The final confrontation will test everything you've learned: trust, patience, and courage." Maris looked at him, fear and determination mingling in her eyes. "I don't care how dangerous it is. I've survived too much to let them take me now." Harper placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "And you won't. We'll make sure of it." Hours passed, and the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the snow in pale gold and silver. The valley lay quiet, deceptively calm. Harper checked her rifle, ensuring the mechanism was free of frost. Tayanita inspected his bow and arrows, every detail precise, and Maris adjusted the satchel, making certain the papers and maps inside were intact. Then, a distant sound carried through the trees, the crunch of hooves, deliberate and synchronized. Harper stiffened. "They found us," she said, her voice low. Maris clutched the satchel tighter, panic flashing in her eyes. Tayanita's expression remained calm, but Harper could see the tension in his stance. The coiled readiness of a predator. The gang emerged from the tree line. Masked and armed, a dozen strong, their leader, the one with the wolf-bone mask, at the center. They stopped at the edge of the clearing, scanning the mill as if measuring the strength of their prey. Harper's mind raced. They couldn't outrun them in the snow, and direct confrontation would be brutal. They had to use the environment, their knowledge of the terrain, and every ounce of skill. Tayanita stepped forward, his presence commanding. "They will not pass," he said calmly, his voice carrying across the clearing. Harper and Maris followed, standing side by side, determination hardening their features. The leader sneered, raising his rifle. "Hand over the locket, and no one gets hurt," he barked. Harper's fingers tightened on her rifle. "The locket belongs to no one but Truth," she said firmly. "You will leave, or you will regret it." A tense silence followed, broken by the sudden whistle of an arrow from Tayanita's bow, striking one of the men in the shoulder. Chaos erupted instantly. Harper fired, picking off another gang member, while Maris, despite her fear, moved swiftly to block the doorway, preventing reinforcements from reaching the center. The snow swirled in a violent wind, kicked up by the horses' hooves and the force of the fight. Harper ducked behind a fallen beam, returning fire with precision, each shot calculated. Tayanita moved like a shadow, disarming and incapacitating men before they even realized he was there. The gang had expected an easy target. Instead, they faced three people whose coordination and skill made them nearly untouchable. Maris, clutching the satchel, realized the gang leader was focused on her, desperate to seize the evidence she carried. She darted across the floor, narrowly avoiding a swing from a rifle butt. Harper covered her, firing at the men advancing from the far side. Tayanita intercepted the leader, their confrontation swift and brutal. In seconds, the leader was disarmed, forced to the ground, and Harper pressed her rifle against his chest. "Leave," she said, her voice cold and unwavering, "and never return. The locket, the evidence, it is not yours to claim. You will answer for every crime you've committed if you continue this." The remaining gang members hesitated, confusion flashing in their eyes. The illusion of control they had carried for months shattered. Slowly they retreated, disappearing into the snow and mist, leaving behind the echoes of their rage and fear. Harper lowered her rifle, exhaling slowly, her body trembling with adrenaline. Maris sank to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can't believe it," she whispered. "We did it. We survived." Harper knelt beside her. "You survived because you refused to give in. You didn't just survive the snow, the gang, and the forest, you survived yourself. That's what matters." Tayanita surveyed the clearing, his gaze sharp. "The threat is diminished, but not gone. Others will learn of this evidence, and they may come. You must be vigilant. But for now, you have earned a reprieve. Rest, recover, and prepare for what lies ahead." The three of them spent the night in the mill, tending to minor wounds and drying clothes dampened by snow and sweat. Maris finally allowed herself to relax, the fear in her eyes softening into relief. Harper and Tayanita maintained their watch, alert but quiet, the fire casting long, flickering shadows across the walls. Outside, the wind had calmed, the snow falling gently, leaving the world blanketed in serene silence by morning. The sun pierced the clouds, turning the snow into a field of sparkling diamonds. Harper stepped outside, letting the warmth of the sun wash over her, feeling the tension of the past days begin to ease. Bramble pawed at the ground, eager to move, and Maris mounted her horse, the satchel of evidence secure. Tayanita moved beside them, scanning the horizon. "We move to town," Harper said firmly. "Locket, the evidence. It belongs to those who seek truth. It must be delivered to those who will act justly." Maris nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "But let's finish this. No more running." The journey to town was long, but the snow had softened enough to allow relatively safe travel. Along the way, Harper taught Maris how to anticipate ambushes and use the terrain to her advantage. Tayanita remained a silent protector, his presence reassuring, almost mystical. They moved as one, a team forged in snow, fear, and fire. When they arrived at the town, it was small and wary, the streets lined with buildings coated in frost and ice. Harper led them to the local magistrate, presenting the maps, notes, and evidence Maris had carried. The magistrate's eyes widened as he examined the documents. Harper spoke clearly and concisely, detailing the gang's actions, the attempted murder of Maris, and the locket's true significance. By the afternoon, word had spread. The gang was apprehended as Harper and Tayanita helped the authorities locate their hideouts using the evidence. Maris's name was cleared and her innocence acknowledged publicly. Relief flooded through her, tears spilling freely. Harper placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You did it. You survived, and you brought justice. That's all that matters." Tayanita watched silently from the edge of the crowd. Harper turned to him. "Will you stay?" she asked. He shook his head, a small smile brushing his lips. "My place is the forest. The snow, the land. It needs guardians. You two have survived, and the balance is restored here. I will remain in the shadows, but I will always watch should darkness return." Maris embraced Harper, gratitude and relief mingling in her eyes. "I owe you my life," she whispered. Harper shook her head. "No, you owed it to yourself. You refused to die, refused to bow to fear. That's why you're alive." As the sun set, casting long golden rays over the melting snow, Harper and Maris walked through the town, their steps light despite the hardships they had endured. The forest behind them remained a silent witness to the trials, the dangers, and the courage that had defined these past days. Tayanita's presence lingered like a shadow at the forest's edge, a reminder that some guardians worked unseen. Guiding fate without recognition, the locket was secured, the evidence delivered, and the gang brought to justice. Maris's life, once shadowed by fear and false accusations, was now hers to reclaim. Harper had proven her skill, courage, and leadership, and Tayanita had shown that strength came in many forms, silent, deliberate, and connected to forces beyond understanding. Harper exhaled, snow melting on her lashes, and whispered to herself, "Some truths are worth every frozen step." Maris, beside her, smiled, the weight of terror lifted at last. The forest, the snow, and the valley behind them remained, a reminder of the peril they had faced, the courage they had found, and the justice they had achieved. The hunt was over, the town safe, and all debts of fear and vengeance repaid. For Harper, Maris, and even Tayanita, the world remained vast and dangerous, but today, justice and survival had won.